All right, we're live. Hi, this is Attorney Vince Davis, and this is Miss Amanda Cisco, and the name of this show is Fight CPS, the Civil Rights Struggle. We're on every Thursday evening from 7 to 8 p.m., and we talk about civil rights stuff. And perhaps you might want to sue a social worker because your rights have been violated, or you might want to sue the county or the state in where you live because your rights have been violated. So if you have any questions, we want you to post in the comment section, and we'll be taking questions from you and from the audience tonight. Um, we were going to have a guest, and we were just talking to the guest, and one of the reasons why we're late tonight is because this guest still has an ongoing case. And I didn't want her to get on the show and talk about the case, even though we're not mentioning any names or the location of where she was, because I didn't want her to be retaliated against. It's come to our attention that there are a lot of people involved in the system, attorneys, social workers. I've been even told some judges who watch this show and watch all of the different shows that we do. So I don't want anybody to be retaliated against. And I told them, and Amanda told them, hey, why don't you come talk to us after you get your kids back and after the case is closed, okay? So we probably won't have a guest tonight unless somebody watching wants to post, and maybe I'll send you an invite and bring you on the show tonight.
Yes, Allie, there's still a show tonight. We're going to be answering your questions.
So everybody that's watching on the different social media platforms, if you have a question, post it. But let's try to limit it to civil rights types questions, and we'll go from there. And if anybody wants to be brave enough to get on, live with us, I can send you an evite or an invite via email, and we can bring you up, and we'll see you right on the show, where millions of people have the opportunity to possibly see you. Here's the comment from Barbara. CPS does retaliate even against the children. So if our guest is watching tonight, I won't say your name, rest assured that, sometimes they do retaliate. And that's why, we were having that discussion and I gave you that warning. All right. So how are you doing, Amanda?
I'm doing fantastic, Vince. How are you?
I'm doing good. Before we begin, my name is Vincent Davis. I'm an attorney licensed in California. In December, it will be 35 years for me. And one of my expertise in the legal field is representing parents and relatives in CPS cases. Tell us about yourself, Amanda.
Hey, everyone. My name is Amanda Cisco. I am the co-host of the show, Fight CPS, the Civil Rights Struggle. I have some great news for tonight. I just started my paralegal degree. I'm a week into classes. I've been reading the law for a few years. I am involved in a wrongful CPS case, but I can't talk about it right now. But rest assured, I do understand what you guys are going through. I do some other things. I'm a realtor. I own a business here locally in the state I'm in, which is Virginia. And I have been an active part of the parental community against CPS and preserving parental rights for a couple of years now. So.
Okay. And that's how you got associated with the show, because you are, I guess, a victim of CPS, and that you're trying to possibly contemplate bringing some type of action.
That is correct.
Okay. We have a book that you can buy, and maybe one day I'll figure out how to give you my Amazon affiliate link.
Is it this one?
No.
Oh, the other one.
So that I might make a small commission every time you buy it, but I haven't figured out how to
I have it. It's propping up my computer right now.
Okay. So the name of the book is 1983. Is it 1983? Yes, Section 1983 litigation. 1983 refers to a federal law, 42 USC 1983, and it's the basic civil rights statute in this country where you are protected against governmental actors like social workers.
Hey, Vince, can we talk about that for a second?
Sure, go ahead.
So I'm in the second chapter. I had to reread and use my Black's Law Dictionary a few times just to make sure I understood what was going on. But one thing that they pointed out was one of the unique aspects of Section 1983 that didn't come along until a little while after it was passed is that it was decided that a plaintiff did not need to exhaust state resources first in order to file a 1983 lawsuit.
Right.
Could you explain that?
Yeah. Some states, hold on a second, I'm emailing somebody. Some states require in certain types of lawsuits that before you can sue the state actor, that you bring some type of preliminary complaint to notify them. I'll give you an example. In California, before you can sue, and Barbara, this is for you, before you can sue your employer, you have to file a administrative claim with the Department of Fair Employment and Housing. And you have to do it within a certain amount of time. Now, Barbara, you still have that time to sue your employer and file this claim. Once you file that claim, there are two things that can happen. The state Department of Fair Employment and Housing can investigate that and come with a decision and give you an award or give you a right to sue letter. If you don't want that to happen, you can just ask them to give you a right to sue letter. Now, in the old days, you had to file something. You had to actually go down there for an interview and everything. I'm talking about 25 years ago. But today, you can do all of that online and, get your right to sue letter. Now, they used to have, or some states used to have that additional requirement for you to sue somebody for a civil rights violation if they were a state actor, state employee, county employee. But what the Supreme Court has held of the United States is, look, the state can't add any requirements to Section 1983. That's a federal law, and if somebody wants to sue under 1983, they just can go ahead and file that lawsuit and sue. So there's no requirement of filing, that type of claim to put the state or the county on notice that you're getting ready to sue them. All right. And it's viewed just as an additional hurdle for people to have to jump over to sue a social worker. And what the Supreme Court has said is, look, the states have no business requiring anything about 1983. All right. If you want to bring a 1983 action, you can bring it. So that's what that means. That's what that means. I hope I answered your question.
You did. What was interesting though, and I know we talked about this before with 1983 and prison reform and 1983 lawsuits, they are still requiring prisoners to exhaust administrative what would you call it? I can't think of the word right now. They have to go through like the prison administration before they can file a Section 1983, which is, I think, a violation of, the lawsuit itself or the law itself. But
right. I don't represent a lot of prisoners, but if that was required, I'd be very surprised because it would be like that extra hurdle.
It's here. Yeah, it's even here in the book. I just can't remember exactly where. I've highlighted a couple of things, but and by the way, Vince, that was my fur baby. Did you know today was National Dog Day?
I did know that. I saw that on social media.
That was so silly. And he, like, of all the days, he was just like, Mom, can I be on the show? So guys, that was my dog, Bob. I rescued him from the Caribbean islands in the St. Croix rainforest a couple of years ago.
I want to tell one of the viewers, Kiyuna Cornish, I sent you that invite. So check your email and I'll pop you on the show with us tonight. So any other things you wanted to bring up regarding 1983 tonight?
Other than, the uniqueness of not having to exhaust state resources first, I don't really think so. I mean, there were some key cases that they mention a lot in here. I think the most important case was, oh gosh, if anybody wants to research this, it was kind of what blew 1983 out of the water. PAPE, something, PAPE, something versus PAPE. It was Paper Pop.
Do you remember what the case stood for? What proposition?
Was it the man in? No. That was there was another Chicago one. The case. Oh my gosh, I read it, but it was really late. I'm on the student hours. I'm no longer a free woman. I'm chained to my books. Was it Roe versus Pop? No. You know what, Vince? I'm drawing a blank right now. I'm so sorry.
That's all right. For all of those that are watching on the different platforms, if you want to post a question or a comment, since we don't have a guest tonight, go ahead and post your question or your comment, and Amanda and I will try to answer them for you.
I have another question though. What does color of law mean?
That you're just acting under some type of legal authority.
Okay.
Here we have a question from Bell Mosque. I'm wondering why it's against our civil rights in California when they take your kids without a warrant. Oh, that's easy. The Fourth Amendment of the United States Constitution protects you from an unreasonable search and seizure, and that includes search and seizure of your children. So a social worker cannot take your child away from you unless they have a warrant signed by a judge or a court order issued by a judge. Now, there is one exception to that, and that one exception is an exigent circumstance, basically meaning it's an emergency. And that's been held to be in this area of law, that, the social worker sees that the abuse is happening and has to pull the kid out of there to make sure the kid isn't seriously hurt.
But don't social workers often fabricate and exaggerate evidence to make it seem like there's an exigent circumstance when there in fact is not? And if that's the case, what does a social worker need to do to prove to a judge that there is in fact an exigent circumstance?
Well, you're combining two different issues that shouldn't be combined in the analysis. So if they don't have a warrant or a court order, they need an exigent circumstance. And they don't need the judge to sign anything. They can just go and take the child.
Okay.
Now, exigent circumstance means that, hey, the child has been hurt, is going to be hurt, is going to be, really seriously injured if I leave the child here. Okay. Exigent circumstance is hard for the social worker to prove. The social worker has to prove that it was an exigent circumstance. Let me give you an example of something that wasn't an exigent circumstance by way of case law here in the Ninth Circuit of the United States. There's an allegation that a father is sexually abusing a child. The social worker, I think, waits a couple days, then goes out to investigate and investigates and interviews everyone, and then leaves, doesn't take the child with her. And then a few days goes by, I think 4 or 5 days goes by, comes back to the house and takes the kid. So the court there held that that's not an exigent circumstance.
Right.
If it was really an emergency, you would have took the kid the first day. But instead, the social worker left and, started asking for help from other social workers and her supervisor, like, hey, what should I do? The kid said this, the mom said that, the father said this, what should I do? So although it might have been an exigent circumstance, it became a non-exigent circumstance. And in order to go back 4 or 5 days later, the court ruled that they needed a warrant or a court order, and they didn't have one. There have been several lawsuits here in California and around the Ninth Circuit and across the nation, because a lot of social workers across the nation don't have exigent circumstances, and they still take kids away from parents without a court order or without a warrant. And
that's been happening everywhere for a while.
And I'm here to tell you that that's unconstitutional, and you can sue the social worker for doing that.
Vince, I have another question. Somebody else had mentioned today, upon my many interviews that I've done this afternoon, that they are joining the class action lawsuit against the Department of Justice. Do you know anything about that?
No.
Because it's come up a few times now, and it keeps coming up that there's a class action lawsuit going on right now against the United States Department of Justice.
You know what I would welcome you to do, and maybe you can tell us next week. Let me tell you something about class action lawsuits. They're not what you think. And everybody says, why don't we do a class action? Like it's easy, like and you can just snap your fingers and you got a class action lawsuit. It's not accurate. Class action lawsuits are the most expensive lawsuits there can be. Okay? 20 years ago, it was easier to bring a class action lawsuit. Today, the laws have changed. The case law has changed through the United States Supreme Court, and they've made it harder for you to bring a class action lawsuit. But here's why most class action lawsuits don't get off the ground. It's money. To prosecute a class action lawsuit, it takes a lot of money, not for the attorney, but for the cost of things that the class has to do. Let me give you an example. Let's say you wanted to bring a class action lawsuit against CPS in Virginia, all right? And the first thing you're going to have to do is give notice to the class. Now, generally, notice means you got to get the names and the addresses of all the possible people that would be in the class. There's a transaction cost to that, gathering those names. It's not free. Then you have to print out a letter. You have to stuff it in an envelope. And then you got to pay the first class postage. Now, what does it cost to mail something these days? 49 cents, 59 cents,
I
whatever
think
it is.
it keeps changing with all the
Yeah.
stuff going on with the post office, the
So
postal service.
let's say it's 49 cents. So basically 50 cents. You got to pay for the paper, the ink, the envelopes, and somebody to stuff them in the envelopes. Let's say that you have a million possible people in your class. Well, what's a million times, let's say, 75 cents to get all that done?
Is that 750,000?
No, I don't know. I think it's more like 75,000 maybe. But
I wasn't great at math.
but whatever it is, do you have an extra 75 grand sitting around? You personally, because this is your class action lawsuit, right? It's not like you decided to sue the social worker in Virginia. It costs you like $500-600 to file a lawsuit just by yourself. No, you want to go the big time. You want to do class action. So people say class action and it rolls off their tongue like, like a song, but who's going to pay for that? And then they say, well, won't you pay for that, Mr. Davis? Look, Mr. Davis doesn't have a spare 75,000 just sitting around to send out letters to people. All right. So then you got to get people in the class together to pay for this. And guess what? Everybody wants to be in the class, but nobody wants to pay for it. So they say, Amanda, you pay for it. And you're like, well, wait a minute. I don't want to pay for this by myself. So then their whole principle of what they call in the law, the free rider. Yeah, I'll be part of the class, but I don't want to put up any money. I was just approached by a former client. We brought a lawsuit against the social workers here in California, and we won. And now she wants me to bring a lawsuit against some other people, right? And what she wants to do is expensive and time consuming. And so I told her today, I said, I can't do that on the contingency fee. It's just too expensive. It's me financing your lawsuit, financing a lawsuit that you might not win. There's a very well-known attorney who sues social workers here in California. And a few years ago, I was talking to him about a lawsuit.
You mean it wasn't you, Vince?
No, it was somebody else, and I was talking to him about a lawsuit that he was getting ready to start a trial on. And the one thing he told me, he says, "You know, if I don't win this lawsuit, I'm gonna go out of business." He had put up so much of his own money chasing this lawsuit. He told me, he says, "I'm gonna go out of business if I don't win." Now, I'm not looking to go out of business, right? Luckily, he did win, and, he didn't win as much as he thought he would be, but he told me after that, he says, "I'm never gonna do that again.
You think
Never
that's
gonna."
why it's so difficult for people to find civil rights attorneys willing to take their case?
Absolutely. This
Mhm.
isn't a car accident that happened at the intersection of A and B Street. This is very sophisticated, complex, labor-intensive lawsuit. It's not like a car accident. You know, I have a case right now where we're suing a county here in California, and they did something today that let me know that we have to spend maybe about $10,000 that my client doesn't have, but they're only doing this at this point in the case to put pressure on the client to settle for less money.
Mm.
These cases, you know, you think it's all about right and wrong and your civil rights. These cases are about money.
You said something during another show that really has my wheels turning lately. You said something along the lines of, and there's even a book about it. There is no law that gets passed without some type of economic impact,
Right.
or it
Well,
was like laws are passed for economic reasons.
right. So here, let me tell you this. In your first year of law school, one of the books that you are recommended to read, and some law schools actually require it to read, it's about this thick, and it's called, the name of the book is called The Economic Analysis of the Law, written by a guy named Posner, a very famous legal scholar. I highly recommend that book to everyone. You know, people think that the law is all about, you know, protecting you and doing what's right and wrong. That's not what the law is solely about. It's about, the law is about the placing burdens on specific groups of people so they don't take advantage of other groups of people. And
Mm.
the only thing you can get from a lawsuit is money. You can't get, um, you know, change history. You know, I once saw a very famous and great attorney by the name of Jerry Spence give an opening argument. And he explained to the jury, in this case, um, I forget the facts, but basically, the plaintiffs, the person suing, their son or something, had been run over by a truck
Oh
and
my
was killed.
goodness.
Was killed. Now they're suing. If they win, they can't bring that child back to life.
Mm-mm.
The only thing they're going to get, and the only thing they can get, is money. So, you know, people tell me all the time, "Oh, Mr. Davis, I just want to get them. You keep all the money." First of all, that's illegal. All right. It's not enforceable and it's illegal for an attorney to try to do that. But, you know, when, you know, at the end of the case, when the money's won or the case is settled, they're saying, "Oh, you know what? I was just kidding. I want my, right? I want my share, Mr. Davis."
I mean,
Of
money
course,
doesn't take care of all the problems, but it does help a lot.
you know, it's not the most important thing in the world, but you know, it's up there with oxygen,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's not the be all end all. It's kind of important. So, you know, class action this, class action that. I got a class action for you. You got an extra $100,000 sitting around? We'll class action all you want. But don't expect me to put up my money on your class action. Mr. Davis doesn't roll like that, right? He doesn't roll like that. Because if I had that much money, I'd probably be retired. So ask yourself before you do anything legally, and I say this to everyone, how much is this going to cost you? I'm involved in a
Do you
case
think
right
that there's Go
I'm
ahead.
involved in a case right now where today the client informed me, um, the client has several lawyers, that are involved, experts, investigators, that we have to cut back on the amount of work that we've been doing. She just can't afford it. She doesn't have a tree in her backyard that has, dollar bills growing on it. You have to always take it into consideration. So I challenge you, look up that lawsuit. If it's a federal lawsuit, even if it's a state, you can go to court or go online and find that case. And you can see if it's really progressing. There's always these rumors. Oh, yeah, there's a class action lawsuit here. There's a class action lawsuit there.
How would one look up that case, Vince? Actually,
You can, you
there are
can Google
entire
it.
classes on legal research alone.
Yeah,
We're
you can
touching on
Google
it.
it. But you can Google it.
Okay.
And whoever told you about this class action, find out. Hey, where is that case? What state? What's the case name? What's the case number? Right? So the law is hard for people, just ordinary people, to bring lawsuits. And it's extremely hard for them to bring class action lawsuits now. The requirements have been tightened. So
And that I can understand that because, the more that I'm learning, and the more that I'm seeing, I'm starting to really realize how, and this is kind of the view that I'm developing, how much resources it requires to file a suit in court. Because it's not just about the lawyer, it's the court's time. Like everything is a process, and all of these processes cost money. And I was also thinking, Vince, the more I think about it, the more it makes sense when we were talking last show about how, the attorneys who represent the city and protecting the city workers, like the social workers, get paid so much more money than the court appointed attorneys who are protecting the victims of these social workers. And, I got to thinking, and I realized it is far more, and this rides off of what you said. I could be wrong. Please correct me if I am, but it is far more economical for the social workers to continue what they're doing and be protected from what they're doing than it is for the justice system and the court system to enforce the parents' rights.
yeah, yeah.
And
Think
I
about
feel like that's often why low income, low education families are targeted more than anyone else,
think
because
about
we
that.
don't have the resources to fight this.
Absolutely. Today, we have a case that's going to trial in October, and we had to pay an expert. We had to hire an expert witness, and I think we had to give him $8,000. Not a lot of money,
I
but
thought
when
800 for one of my experts was expensive.
yeah, but when you're poor and you don't have that kind of money like that, 8,000, it might as well be 8 million, right? It's expensive to bring a lawsuit to trial and to win, and the other side knows that. They're going to try to wear you down. There's one other thing. We have a guest that did call in. I'll be right with you. There's one other thing. I want to tell you something. If your rights are violated and you can sue, doesn't mean that you're going to get your child back. Doesn't mean that at all. That case I told you about, the guy that spent a lot of money of his own money and was going to go broke if he didn't win the case.
Mhm.
The mother didn't have, his client was the mother. The mother didn't have custody of the child. After he won, now the jury, they win the case. All right, I think $3.1 million. They win the case. That doesn't mean the mother gets the child back. And as a
You're
matter of fact,
joking.
no. As a matter of fact, another attorney started representing the mother in family law court to get the child back. Do you know that the judge would not change anything?
Why? Why?
Family law and civil rights law is night and day. I'll give you a good example. See, people don't understand this. They just think, oh, it's all the same. It's not all the same. Here's the best example that I give people. Amanda, you might be too young for this, to remember this. But
I already have gray hairs, Vince. What do you mean?
there was a guy who was a famous football player named O.J. Simpson.
I'm
Okay?
not so young for that.
He was found not guilty after a trial. And I'm not saying it was right or wrong. I'm just saying he was found not guilty. They went across the street to the civil court and he lost $40 million. A lot of people saying, how does that happen? He was found not guilty. No, he was found not guilty in criminal court. Different laws, different burdens of proof.
So what is family court, Vince? Because we also covered this in one of my classes, actually called family law. So here in Virginia, with it being a commonwealth, and I believe California is a commonwealth, am I correct?
No, it's a state, but there's no difference in terms of the law. There's no difference between a
There's
commonwealth.
no such thing. So he was talking about this, and he's in the circuit court of the city of Chesapeake, and he was talking about the fact that there is no actual family court here in Virginia. He was able to get some laws passed that created a family court for a couple of years, but they stopped funding it one day, even despite the fact that it was working wonderfully. So you've got like juvenile, you've got domestic relations, you've got all these things, mixed up in this, JDR court system, juvenile and domestic relations, but it's not actually family court, and it's not civil court, but it's not criminal court.
Right.
And he said it's just a whole mess.
Yeah, your state has chosen to do it like that. And they have the discretion to process justice the way they think they should. They don't have to be like California or Florida or New York.
So what does control these courts then? What can a plaintiff?
Your state legislature. That's why I tell people, let's get together.
Law?
Yeah, let's get together and vote.
Okay.
If you want to form a separate family law court, you got to get the right people in office. I don't know if Virginia has the proposition system, but California does. But that doesn't really matter. California passed a law recently regarding Uber drivers and in that type of economy, saying they don't have to be employees, right? And everybody was happy. And just now, recently, a couple of days ago, the California Supreme Court said, "Oh, that's unconstitutional."
So we actually
even though the voters passed it.
We have an election coming up here for a governor and a delegate. And I know that we talk about voting a lot. What are a few really good questions? Because I've already signed up for the newsletters and like where they're going to be, these meetings we're going to have. What are some really good questions to ask these politicians to figure out, because you can tell a politician's lying when their lips are moving. That's like the famous saying. What are some really good questions I can ask them to figure out where they stand on this particular matter?
On what, CPS?
Yes.
What do you think about CPS? Do you think is it needed? Does it need to be reformed? A lot of legislatures they might not even know about CPS. So it's more of an education. A lot of laws aren't changed because, legislators probably don't even know about it.
Which is sad considering the fact that it's really a national crisis.
Yeah. There was a guy I went to law school with, and he was doing certain types of law. And one of the things he was doing was CPS law, representing people in CPS court. And he got elected to state office in Sacramento. He was a legislator. He was an assemblyman, and then he was a senator. And he told me years ago something to the effect that, when he got there to Sacramento, he wanted to change laws. He wanted to make people aware of what was going on and how people were being taken advantage of, in the CPS system. He got there, and then I think he found out that nobody was really like interested in that. They had other interests. There's a lot of other shit going on in the state, in every state, other than just CPS stuff. It's important to me and you, but that don't mean it's important to people that are in power. As far as they're concerned, for most people who aren't involved in CPS, they think that it's necessary and that they're all good social workers and they would never lie on you. And if they did, there must be a good reason.
Yeah.
So, hey, we got a guest. Let me bring her on. Hello there. How are you?
Hi, Mr. Vince Davis. It's like perfect timing. I've always wanted to be on your show.
Oh,
Thank
well,
you so much for being here. We're happy to have you.
tell
Nice
us your
to meet
name.
you.
Tell us your name.
Kiana?
Okay. And are you involved with CPS?
Yes, sir. I have my second, now third case with CPS because since my second case opened a year ago, I just gave birth to newborn twins again. Um, I had twins last
Congratulations.
year.
Well,
Thank
hold on a
you.
second. Hold on a second. You have an open CPS case right now?
Yes, sir. Two cases.
Okay, so let me tell you something, okay, before we go any further. You being on this show might be a negative in your CPS case.
It can't get any worse than it is, and I haven't done anything wrong, but it's just a very manipulative case, and I want to I want to go to the extreme and get it out there and be public with it because it needs to be heard, and I need to bring awareness to it.
Okay, so what questions did you want to share a story with us, or did you want to ask some questions, or or both?
I would more so like to share my story.
Okay, go ahead. Oh, by the way, we
Yes,
don't
sir.
use names. We don't use names. Okay, don't say anybody's name.
Yes, sir. I watch your show all the time.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm 32 years old. I live in Georgia, and I reside in Clayton County, where there is a sheriff right now that's in Clayton County indicted for cruelty to the jail, the people that are in jail. So like he's always in trouble. So it's pretty corrupt here in this county, and it's a historical slave town that I live in. There's like a plantation behind my apartment complex, and a little bit about my history. I've never been in any trouble before this case. I've been a victim of domestic violence. I married at 19 to a African, and he got legal here through me. I met him in high school. So I was really smart in school, had good grades. I was in the National Honors Program in middle school, traveled to Bentley College in Boston, graduated from a technical college. To say that I'm African American woman, I've been through a lot of discrimination, as we all do, who have my color of skin. So we become conditioned to certain um things that society that we have to go through, with society. So I have a Black Lives Matter shirt on. I gave birth to twins last year, and my baby father accidentally hurt um, one of our twins' premature babies, and I don't know if it actually was an accident, but from my understanding, I thought everyone was happy. It happened on Easter Day. and it was in April last year, right around the time COVID started, and I had respiratory issues and high blood pressure, and it was just right after I gave birth to my premature babies. I already had 3 kids, and I just gave birth to twins for the first time. And I needed help because I didn't have much support. So the father of my twins didn't leave me. I've had other kids, and the father left, and I would be alone raising kids, but he didn't leave. He was there. There was no fight or anything, but we're being accused of family violence.
Mm.
And at first I was like, advocating that, it was an accident, and it's being used against me that I'm advocating that it's an accident. They're making it look like I'm defending him, or I must know what happened because I said it was an accident, but I actually feel like it could have been one because there was nothing but joy in my heart, even though I was sick at the time, and no one was fighting. It got so bad because my sister ended up having my kids with her, and I thought it was just temporarily. I prayed about it. Me and my sister never got along, and my parents know of that, so they're trying not to, be involved with the case. But my father is now involved with the case, and my sister is harassing my father now. She's even cursed him out in front of the judge in the hearing, saying he doesn't know SHIT because she's been manipulating my whole case, and she built a relationship with the caseworker.
Mm.
Long story short, I've been charged with family violence and cruelty to children, and it looks like the family violence charge has been disposed, but cruelty to children, 2 counts, is pending because I was discriminated for not spending the night at the hospital because I was sick and I have other children to take care of, and I don't have much support, so I went home, and I had just had my baby in the hospital a week before, and she was in NICU for being premature. So I kind of got accustomed to leaving her at the hospital, and didn't realize that I would be discriminated for that. So when I brought her to the hospital because her legs were swollen after the incident where her father explained he accidentally pressed down on her leg, I tried to explain to the hospital that I have other children I have to tend to when I left, but I was discriminated against and was said to have possibly postpartum depression and no bond with my babies.
I'm sorry to hear that.
So are you
Um,
fighting it now?
I am fighting it. I don't have an attorney, and my public defender tells me to file everything myself. She's defended the previous public defender, saying that she knows her for a long time. Why did I report her to the bar? That public defender that I had prior to her told me to contact a CPS attorney before I found out that it was CPS attorney when she first contacted me and got on my case. And she was calling me from a private number as well, and said that she had the right to do that. And I had to call the courthouse and figure out what number should I contact her by.
Can a public defender who is representing someone in this type of case make their client file their own papers? Or isn't it true that when we are appointed someone or when we hire someone to represent us, we can't file anything without them? Please correct me if I'm wrong. That doesn't sound right at all.
Well, generally, it
And
wouldn't
it
be.
sounds like it's definitely a conflict of interest case here.
You want me to answer that?
Sorry.
Generally, you are correct. There may be some minor exceptions, but I'm not sure, look, I'm an attorney licensed in California. I don't know what they do in Georgia, right? But if you were here in California, that would be a very odd situation for me to tell my client to file something, right? I
Mm.
have a client right now who um, loves to play lawyer. She does all types of research, um, and goes to the law library and everything. And we spend most of our time me explaining to the law, where she's correct and where she's not correct. And we spend a lot of time doing that. Not a good value to her time and me working on her case. But a lot of people want to do things themselves. Now we've lost that young lady, but uh, I got the impression she didn't want to file things herself, and she should, and that's why she has an attorney.
And that's why you focus so strongly on strategy. You have to
Right.
sit down with your attorney and strategize. I remember you gave us some really good advice before, and I believe you said, write, like, outline all the facts of the story, outline the story, identify all the facts, and then send it to your counselor so that they can go over it. And then when you get there, they already understand the story. They've been able to identify what they need to know, and then you can use that time with them to strategize your plan.
Yeah. Just the little things people, sometimes don't want to do because it takes time and energy. But a lot of people that are watching out there could help their case a lot by just doing exactly what you just said. Because the story and the facts of the case are they're concrete
Mm,
and they're on paper. And it's not like you have to keep telling your attorney the same thing over and over because
right.
he or she keeps forgetting.
And these attorneys can be so busy. If you spend your first meeting or any meeting with them just dumping like all of your emotional baggage on them, you are wasting precious time.
Right. And that's why I say write it down, type it out. Type it out. Miss Welch there says Marsden hearing in California. If you don't like, or if you have a conflict with your attorney, a conflict of interest, you can have what's called a Marsden hearing to get a new attorney, even to get a new court-appointed attorney.
Thank you for that comment, Charno.
So I have a couple of videos on my YouTube channel about Marsden hearings and how to do them and what you need to do them, because you just can't go in and say, "Hey, judge, I don't like my attorney." That's not going to get it.
I've never heard of anything like that over here in Virginia.
I would bet $1 they have something like that. Probably it's
I'm
not.
sure I'll learn it this semester.
Probably it's not widely discussed. It's not something a lot of people like to talk about, especially those in the system, necessarily. But I bet you guys have something, and you just call it something else.
That'll be a great question for one of my professors. I asked so many questions, Vince, on my first day of class. It was by the end of class, one of my teachers was like, "Oh my gosh, get her out of here."
Are your professors?
All
Are
of my professors hold very significant roles in the legal field and in the community. I am really, really grateful for each and every one of them. My administrative justice professor, I have this really cool class where I get to like play with police toys in a crime lab. It's required for my public law degree. And she was like chief of police in Connecticut for 10 years. And like by the end of the semester, we're gonna like do our own like whole like crime scene. We're gonna figure the whole thing out. It's really cool. And then one of my other ones is like the deputy prosecutor for the city that I live in, who is also best friends with the director of the Department of Health and Human Services. So I better make really good friends with her.
Devon Roy is asking a question. I was denied the right to represent myself in a dependency court in California. Why is that? Well, Mr. Roy, let me tell you the reason why. Because the judge probably felt that you didn't have the ability to represent yourself, and you haven't shown that there is an actual conflict of interest between you and your attorney. You not liking your attorney for whatever reason doesn't mean that there's a conflict of interest. And on YouTube, you should search on my YouTube channel. It's Vincent. I think it's Vincent Davis, trial lawyer. I have a couple of videos on how to successfully make a Marsden motion that could be granted. you know. But Mr. Roy, these cases are involving your children, and I'm not sure you want to do something like represent yourself, because there's that old saying, and it even applies to lawyers. How does it go? Uh, the person who represents himself has a fool for a lawyer.
I think I've heard that one.
Yeah. So think about that, Mr. Roy. And by the way, if the doctor told you, hey, you need open heart surgery, you wouldn't want to do that by yourself.
No.
And this is just as important at that. You have to ask yourself, do you have the knowledge, the training, and the experience to go into court and represent yourself in these CPS cases? Not too long ago, my auto mechanic told me, hey, Vince, you need a new transmission. You know what I didn't do? I didn't run to Pet Boys. I didn't get the book on Chilton on changing transmissions. I didn't get tools. I didn't buy the supplies. I didn't go on Google. I didn't go on YouTube to try to figure it out. You know why? Because it would be a complete disaster. I don't have the knowledge, training, or experience to do that. I'm looking at your profile picture. You look like a young man. One of the things you're going to learn is every man has his limitations, and if you are trying to do something that you don't have knowledge, training, or experience, or even the tools to do, this is going to turn out to be a disaster, or the odds are. Now, have people ever gone to court, represented themselves, and won? Yes.
Yes, but it takes a lot of work. Lots and lots of work.
It's like 1 out of 1,000 times.
Right.
It's very low probability of success. Why would you take the very low probability of success when we're talking about your children? You would want to take the high probability of success.
But perhaps it's because they don't have any other choice.
They always have a choice. It may be one choice might be bad, but the other choice is worse.
Mm.
So sometimes you don't have great choices, but you got to work with what you have. You got to play the hand you're dealt to the best of your ability. Now, I don't know Mr. Roy at all. He might have legal training. He might have gone to paralegal school. He might have gone to law school, right? I don't know. I don't know Mr. Roy. But if he doesn't have any of that, stick with the court-appointed attorney and try to work with them. I know you probably don't like your court-appointed attorney, but liking, that doesn't have anything to do with it. It shouldn't. You're fighting for your children.
Mm.
So make your enemy your friend. Work with that court-appointed attorney to get your child back. Here's another question from Somebody's Body. It's an interesting name. Read your state statutes on family law as it pertains to CPS. Learn it well and email with your lawyer where you see discrepancies. That's pretty good advice.
That is great advice. Absolutely.
Now, I just want to say in California, and it may be different in other states. I know you've already said it's different in Virginia. CPS cases are not family law. CPS cases are governed by the Welfare and Institutions Code. Family law cases are governed by the Family Law Code. Night and day. But the gist of it is...
But aren't they like bleeding into each other in the courtroom?
No.
Because our statutory laws are very clear about what CPS's guidelines are and what is required of them.
I'm not an expert on Virginia law. I'm just telling you about California.
It
It
is governed by what code? I'm taking notes.
CPS cases in California are governed by the Welfare and Institutions Code, WIC, W-I-C.
In Virginia, WIC means women, infants, and children, or now it's wise, informed choices. It's where you get like milk and bread for free.
And family law cases are governed by the California Family Code. That it's night and day. Now, you might think that they should be related or they are related because they're dealing with parent and children, right? But that's
Right.
the end of the analysis or the similarities. They have different standards, different evidentiary standards, different appellate cases. Every once in a while I'll cite a family law case um, for some proposition, and I'm quickly told, Mr. Davis, that's a family law case. It's not a juvenile dependency case. Why are you mentioning that? Like, why are you bringing it up? So keep it separate in your mind. Keep it separate in your analysis. One of the things that I found hard to accept is that legal analysis is generally very tight. It's not broad. So don't look at things and give it an analysis from a very broad spectrum. Start off tight, and then you might argue broad. So here's a tip for you for paralegal school. They say that if you have the facts, argue the facts. If you don't have the facts, argue the law. If you don't have the facts or the law, argue what they call equities, fairness.
Oh man, that is really good. I like this quote a lot. If you don't have the facts, argue the law. And then if you don't have the facts or the law, what was it?
Argue the equities, the
What
fairness.
does that mean?
The fairness. Hey, judge, it's not fair.
Okay, argue the equities and the fairness.
Yeah, you will find out what the equities are pretty soon in paralegal school.
Okay, hold on. Let me make sure I got this right because I really, really like that. They say that if you have the facts, argue the facts. They say if you don't have the facts, argue the law. If you don't have the facts or the law, argue the equities and the fairness of the law.
This the fairness, the general fairness of law.
Oh, just equities and the fairness. Okay. Thank you very much for that.
So, Katrina Roberts, I don't understand that question. Place again, why? Must be relating to something else in the thread that I didn't see. Here's something Sandra says, be loud. That's not necessarily a good strategy. Every situation when you're arguing calls for a different approach. Every judge that you're talking to calls for sometimes a different approach. Because all judges are human beings. They're all different, just like we're all different. Sometimes you have to approach, you have to know the audience you're talking to. And in most states, I know they do this in California, there's biographies about judges, and you can read, whether this guy or gal was a prosecutor or a defense attorney or corporate attorney, or a civil litigator or a med mal attorney. So you can get a kind of a general sense. Now, will that always work? No. But at least to give you some background as to maybe how they think, how they react. Okay. Hey, we're coming to the end of our show, Miss Cisco. So we're going to have to sign off for the evening. I want to thank you, Miss Cisco, for being with me this evening, co-host.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure as always.
I want to thank everybody who watched on the different social media platforms. And for those of you who posted your comments, I want to thank our guest who disappeared. I'm not sure why she disappeared on us, but come back next week on Thursday at 7 p.m. and we'll do this again. Also on Saturdays, every Saturday from 7 p.m. to 10 p.m., we have a nationally broadcast radio show on KABC 790 AM talk radio in Los Angeles. It's also live streamed at kabc.com, and it also is live streamed on these social media pages. So most likely, if you're watching something right now on one of these social media channels, you can catch the radio show, the 3-hour show on Saturday. The only platform that it's not broadcast on is going to be YouTube. And there's a whole thing about YouTube and copyright and music, because the radio show has music in it, has commercials and stuff. And YouTube is very sensitive about things like that. So we don't want to get YouTube upset with us. All right. So thank you, everyone. And we'll see you Saturday night. And for sure, we'll see you next Thursday at 7 p.m. with Amanda. And I will be back with this show, Fight CPS, the Civil Rights Struggle. All
You
right.
guys
So
have a great night. Good night, Vince.
good night.